I can break out the helmet, but I don't think they're ready for that.
No, they're not ready for that. For sure not. Do we have the cords bag? McClintock Wildlife Area.
So this used to be an old Army ammunitions depot. From the looks of it, I would say it would be small arms, looking at the pictures, as opposed to...
They actually manufacture TNT here too. That's the name of the area.
Yeah, small arms TNT. Well, there's also quite a bit still being built or made on the other side of the Ohio River. So, there we go. Interesting. Oh, so that goes up to the top of the bunker, which, without mistake, I ain't gonna try. But we'll see what's going on, what the plan is.
I think you can make a career of this.
Once upon a time, maybe.
My apologies to Steve Ward, because I did not capture a good image of him. However, Steve started talking about John Keel. He was drafted into the U.S. Army during the Korean War because he had worked with radio and television and was assigned to the radio station American Forces Network at Frankfurt, Germany, and started writing radio programs within 1 year, and he was the chief of productions for the network. When his 2 years of military service ended, he was offered and accepted a civilian job for the Army. At age 24, he resigned and traveled 4 years around the Middle East and Southeast Asia. He tried to find performers of Indian rope trick, investigate Farkris and Yogis, and he even tried to track the Yeti. And that journey became his first published book in Jado. During the 1960s, he worked for television, and he was the chief writer of the game show Play Your Hunch, and wrote for TV series such as Mack and Meyer for Hire, The Chuck McCann Show, The Clay Cole Show, Get Smart, The Monkees, and, one of my favorite, Lost in Space. Now, all this information is basically off of his Wikipedia page, and at the bottom, I will put links to everything in the descriptions. He was a technical advisor for the Library of Congress 1968 to 1969 and a special consultant to the Office of Scientific Research, Bureau of Radiology, and before becoming a consultant to the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. Okay, so very, very well-rounded, experienced individual that Steve's talking about, and John Keel. Keels also was the one who invented the term the Men in Black in an article in Men Ventures magazine, Saga, published in 1967. Now, one of the things that Keel did do is that he abandoned the extraterrestrial hypothesis that these UFOs and everything that people were seeing did not come from another planet, were not extraterrestrials visiting us. And as he's quoted as saying, I abandoned the extraterrestrial hypothesis in 1967 when my own field investigations disclosed an astonishing overlap between psychic phenomenon and UFOs. The objects and apparitions do not necessarily originate on another planet and may not even exist as permanent constructs of matter. It's more likely that we see what we want to see and interpret such visions according to our contemporary beliefs. That's an interesting thing to say right there. Them like popped up and kind of unusual. Steve Ward was just on Untold Radio, and he started bringing up the year of UFOs, which is 1966, and it just coincided with the fact that I was looking at this, and I thought, well, I wonder when the chase across Ohio, or the sheriffs and so forth, chased a UFO from Rootstown, Ohio, all the way down to Pittsburgh, what year that occurred, and it was in 1966. So let's take a look at the time frame, starting back as far as we can go, and move forward. It began in March of 1966 with a sighting over a farm in Dexter, Michigan. Here you have a local newspaper clipping that's from the Ann Arbor District Library newspaper archive of the local deputies' saucers pictures. Lights were seen hovering and zipping across the sky. Reports came in from all over the area. One Washita County Sheriff deputy was quoted as calling the objects, whatever they were the weirdest things I'd ever seen. This is a story that caught my intrigue. Again, it's the race across Ohio that I knew of. Why? Because it's local, you know. Same thing with Mothman. The people down there around Point Pleasant are more likely to know more of the stories down there because they're local. Whereas I did not know as many stories down there. They may not know or be aware of the story up here. But basically, sheriff deputies chased a UFO from Randolph all the way to Pittsburgh. And it was highlighted in the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's 5 a.m., April 17th, 1966, when two Portage County Sheriff deputies stopped to investigate an abandoned vehicle along the road near Ravenna. Deputy Dale Spar gets out of his car while Wilbur Barney Neff remains in his. He hears this strange humming noise, so he turns around and sees this giant UFO, says Brian Seach, co-founder of the Center for Unexplained Events. The unidentified flying object rises up behind the trees, hovers above them. The ground is drenched in bright light. And what transpires next will be an 86-mile chase at speeds of more than 100 miles per hour that'll take the deputies and a few more on a harrowing ride from Ohio to Pennsylvania. For law enforcement officials, the bizarre trek won't end in Conway, PA. It'll follow them for the rest of their life. This close encounter marks the fourth installment, the Times video series, The Parajournal, by award-winning videographer Gwen Titley. Initially instructed by their dispatcher to shoot the object, Spar and Neff are told to stand down by Sergeant Henry Schoenfeld, who wonders if the two have found a government weather balloon. About the same time, Police Chief Gerald Butcher, who was on patrol near Manua, hears the deputy's call about lights in the sky. He races home to get his camera and snaps 3 photos of what he described as 2 table saucers put together. And that's the photograph that was taken by Police Chief Gerald Butchert from about 20 miles away at the time. So really, it was a very, it's an interesting tale. It's an interesting story, and there does appear to be, some photographs. You got some witnesses there that are of professional nature. So it's important to bring up the I-77 corridor here, especially in regards to the next tale that's going to be happening, involved 1966. And what we're talking about is the I-77 corridor. And in 1966, the highway system was not as you would think of it as being today. In 1966, Woodrow, oh boy, Durenberger was a sewing machine salesman living in Mineral Wells, West Virginia. One November night that year, 1966, Durenberger said he was returning from a business trip to Marietta, Ohio, when he had to stop and adjust a sewing machine in the back of his truck. Once he got back on the road, he noticed lights ahead of him, and it would then turn out being Durenberger's and the world's introduction to an entity known as Ingrid Cole. So basically, Durenberger saw this gentleman standing at the side of the road who walked up to his vehicle while he was stopped and spoke to him telepathically. And Durenberger described the individual as tanned, but not overly tanned, but with a smile that would not go away, that spoke to him telepathically. And he also described him as having slicked black hair. And the story of itself is interesting. I'm looking for any more encounter stories and so forth. But from my understanding, the individual did come from the lights that were presented on Durenberger's drive home that night. After Ingrid Cole, you have the Mothman incidents, and those are a series of sightings that occurred between Point Pleasant, West Virginia, Gallipolis, Ohio, the TNT area, and outside of Point Pleasant, which used to be a former military TNT manufacturing area, which I find interesting because Ravenna used to be, or Rootstown up there above the Chase of Ohio, used to be a artillery or munitions factory, but it's closed. Hasn't been in operation for 4 decades now, something like that. It was officially closed, I think, in the 80s or the 90s, one of the two. And nothing has been produced there. So it's very interesting, I think. And if you look at Michigan, I would not be surprised if there wasn't maybe some form of munition bunker or something somewhere in that area as well, So, could there be, something substitute, something of substance there, searching for the correct word, a connection point. It may be. But anyhow, the Mothman stories took place, and I can't do them justice. There's quite a few of them. The race out there at the TNT area. And like I said, I lack the ability to tell the tales very well. So, we're going to go straight into the Silver Bridge, which that happened in December of 1977. And then it was somewhat foretold in a dream. Somebody was seeing presence floating in the Ohio River that, shortly before. And like I said, you can go and capture those stories a little bit more in depth. But the Silver Bridge, we get back to the engineering portion of it, where I am finding of interest. So the Silver Bridge was a suspension bridge, which means the two cables up atop, similar to the Golden Gate Bridge, but in this case, it's made out of giant chain links. They carry the weight from one end of the river to the other end. And the Silver Bridge was made by I-bar chain, and which uses suspenders to hold the load-bearing roadway up. Now, there was a couple issues here in that, the Silver Bridge, the traffic on it kept getting heavier and heavier and heavier, while the Silver Bridge simply did not change. And it was made with just 2 I-bars for a total of 4 I-bars connected at a point. And that's where you're going to see all your load and all your weight. And unfortunately, that's what gave way and caused the disaster to happen. And there you see one of the I-bars itself. You have 2 on the outside, 2 on the inside. And then you have the I-bar that snapped. And again, it's another interesting read in that, these I-bars, the way they were manufactured, you don't do this stuff today. You don't. Cables, stuff like that, they're all preloaded before going out to the public. There's a safety factor in there that they won't tell you because it's rated at 1,000 pounds, but there's a safety factor. They don't want, because if you knew the safety factor, people more than likely will just take the weight up to that area of catastrophic failure and cause an accident or an injury or a death. And we don't do that these days. And unfortunately, the I-bars, they were never pre-tested. They were never stressed out to, for at least from my understanding and the reading that I did while there at the museum, they never had their tensile strength actually tested in each one. And apparently the one I-bar had a flaw. The one I-bar gave way. Because there was only 2 I-bars, that took all the load from the one bar on the one side, transitioned it over to the other, and basically it snapped as well. So, you basically, say that you have, at 1,000 pounds, an I-bar will snap. And you've got 2 I-bars together. Together they can hold 2,000 pounds, right? But when that 1,000 pound I-bar snaps, now you're trying to hold all 2,000 pounds by a single 1,000 pound I-bar. And that's what caused the collapse of the Silver Bridge. And there was quite a bit of safety and engineering that went into it, looking back on it. And you take a look at some of the other bridges that have fallen since then. Minneapolis, I believe it was, down there in Florida, a couple of them, and the recent suspension bridge that got hit by a boat. Now those were boat impacts. So again, those were very interesting. Don't know if there's any Mothman sightings prior to the incidents, but don't really know. It's a very interesting portion of the tale, and quite intriguing. Now, and so all that's saying right here is what I've already told you about the 2 I-bars. Now, as far as Mothman is concerned, UFOs, all of it put together, and there's just a lot going on there, and all the stories was Mothman directly or indirectly related to Silver Bridge. Well, nobody knows. There's no truly defined connection. He was never seen standing on top of the Silver Bridge chewing on an I-beam. What we do know for 100% certainty that, semi-trucks, vehicles kept getting heavier and heavier and heavier, and this bridge was not designed to carry that kind of load in its engineering. And that's what caused the deaths of, I believe, 46 or 48 people. I'll take over the world if I put it on.
What do you want to do tonight? Where we're gonna find rubber pants in my size.
Where are we gonna find rubber pants in just my size?
I had that backwards, didn't I? What do you want to do tonight? Yeah, cool.
Just so I can run the Phasm on one side and record on the other side. Messing things up.
I usually put them on my head.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
Oh, no, so I had so the way I did it last time, instead of trying to hold the recorder, I had my headlamp. And I took the recorder and I stuck it in the headlamp band. And so the recorder was up above my head. And it worked out pretty well for me.
Well, the photojournalist Matt Larson, who's chasing Bigfoot down in Florida, turned me on to, you know, he took a bicycle helmet and modified it for it. So I wanted something that I could also use hunting. So I got one of those Wendy helmets.